of things, it is apt that the two pillars of formative assessment, one is documentation of achievement of competencies, and secondly, uh, giving feedback to the learner so that they can improve, and if they are falling short to achieve the competency, giving them opportunity to uh, make sure that they become competent. So these are the principles uh, of formative assessment in competency-based curriculum. And as we know, logbook is one of the tools of this particular type of formative assessment. So with this, we begin the session. So what we'll be doing is we'll be actually touching on the overview of the concept of logbook and portfolio and try and look at its application and design in the subject of anatomy that we belong to. Just maybe you can tell me whether the screen is visible or not. I didn't check right in the beginning. I'm sure it is visible.
It is visible, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So let's move ahead. So this is how the cover page of the logbook module of the erstwhile Medical Council of India looks like, and we'll also be touching upon the concept of portfolio this session. What we hope to achieve by the end of this session is that each one of you shall be able to differentiate logbook and portfolio, explain the principles of logbook design, design a logbook, describe the purpose and types of portfolio, and describe the various ways of maintaining a portfolio. As always, I'd like to tell you all the sources of information that is used in the presentation. Firstly, of course, the GMER document 2019, the logbook module that was published by the erstwhile Medical Council of India. Then the logbook templates of Maharashtra University of Health Sciences that was given for the first MBBS 2019 batch. Logbook templates that were shared by the resource faculty of this course. And of course, learnings from discussions that we had during CISP workshops at our place and with faculty and participants of this course during the last 3.5 months. So what is a logbook? Can we have a few responses on the chat box? Maybe short sentences or 1 or 2 words.
Day-to-day activity, documentation.
Okay. Day-to-day activity, fine. Anything else? Anyone else? Okay. Record of activities, record of important events, documentation of whatever students learn, see, and do, daily record, glimpses, record of competency achievement, and record of skills learned and their assessment. So lots of responses. The key word or the common word that I'm picking up is record. And Asha says it's a navigation history. Okay, so all these, yes, definitely encompass logbook. So let us see reflection of students in the logbook. Okay, so that's another thing that is written. Fine. So let's see what the document defines logbook as. So as you all said, it's a record. And what kind of record it is? It's a verified record of the progression of the learner, documenting acquisition of the requisite knowledge, skills, attitudes, and or competencies. So this is what is described in the module that was published by the erstwhile MCI in January 2020. So it's a verified record. That's important. So record, documentation of record is one thing, but it is verified. So that is another thing that is emphasized here. Verified record of the progression of learner, and by documenting acquisition of the various competencies that are listed in our document. Now, as compared to logbook, then the other term that is of concern to us right now is what is a portfolio. The question is whether is it same as that of the logbook or different from the logbook. If different, then what is the difference? So can we have a few responses on the chat? Our portfolio. We are right now talking of portfolio. What do you think a portfolio is? How is it same or different from a logbook? Portfolios cover individual sessions. Prerna and people say it is different. Yes. Actual details of activities which are recorded in the logbook. Okay. Any other thoughts?
So can I say?
Yes, please say.
So portfolio for individual topic, they have to write down in details about how they have proceeded towards that particular topic. And if we take a case, clinical case, then starting from the history to ultimately the type of treatment was given by to the patient. So whole thing and how, what is their take on that, each and everything regarding a single topic is written. Whereas in logbook, we just, it's like an index what we have done in that on that particular day in
Okay,
that department.
okay. So you have actually given the keyword as logbook is the index, whereas portfolio is the explanation of the things that are mentioned in the index. Okay, and similar, not a similar thing, but Bhavna says actual details of activities which are recorded in the logbook, and Dr. Deepti says that it contains documents which substantiate the records which are listed in the logbook, and Dr. Vinay Kumar says that it is learners development progress. Right. So all responses are correct, and portfolio includes assessment, strengths and weaknesses, details of the activity, Dr. Jay Prakash says. Right, fine. So I think everybody agrees that portfolio is different, and everybody also agrees that portfolio is more detailed than a logbook, and portfolio actually gives us the evidences of what is written in the logbook. Fine. So that's what a portfolio is. So what does our MCI module booklet say? Portfolio is a collection of learners' progression in tasks and competencies, and it is an evidence of events documented in the logbook, as you all rightly said. And what does it include? It includes selected assignments, self-assessment, feedback that is given to the learner, and also feedback of the learner. It is work based, and also in training formative assessments are documented. Then reflections and learnings from the planned activity in the curriculum also constitute what is a portfolio. So as you see, it encompasses a lot of things which will provide us evidence of the list that is provided in the logbook. So let us look at a few logbook templates before we proceed to the guidelines that are given for designing a logbook. So let's look at those templates first. And since I belong to Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, I will be sharing the template given by Maharashtra University of Health Sciences for its affiliated colleges. So this is the logo of Maharashtra University of Health Sciences situated at Nashik. And this is a screenshot of the page where the link to the logbook is found. This is the link for foundation course logbook. It was published as early as 31st July 2019, one of the earliest, I believe. And the logbook for the subjects anatomy, physiology, biochemistry was published as early as 8th of August 2019. So these are the links that are available for the same, and I have just of course downloaded and will be sharing with you on the screen. Firstly, the logbook of foundation course, how it was designed at that particular point in time where no clear cut guidelines were available. So let's look at those. Okay, so this was the notification. Is it visible on the screen? Can I just know?
Yes, sir,
Yes,
it's
visible.
visible.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So this was the notification dated 31st July 2019, and regarding the logbook for foundation course, it was just a guide that was given. However, colleges were permitted to modify as per their own scheme of things also. This was just a guide given. How it looked like, this was a cover page suggested. Then, of course, the name of the college, the name of the student, roll number, and the year, followed by certificate page where the logo of the college is there, and then a statement that the student has completed various elements of foundation course as prescribed by the MCI at the medical college satisfactorily, date, place, and the signatories were the teacher assigned for assessing the logbook, and then the heads of the department of 4 subjects, so including community medicine, that was suggested here. And then there was a page giving purpose of the foundation course, then the various modules of the foundation course as listed in the CISP document at that time, and then a few general instructions given to the students regarding the foundation course, regarding the attendance criteria, then uh, mandate for the students to attend all modules, self-directed learning encouragement, writing reflections, all those things, and responsibility of the student to maintain the logbook. So this is a page of general instructions to the students, and of course the structure of reflections, what was expected by the from the students to write. The 3 common questions that we are all familiar with this. So this is what was given to the students in the instructions page. And then the MUHS proposed at that time was a proposed weekly format. Timetable of the foundation course of the college could be inserted in this particular region, so that the students get a glimpse of what are the events that are held every week, and then accordingly fill up this particular table of contents page, the date on which the activity was done, the name of the activity, and then uh, pages were added to this, and the students had the freedom of writing the page numbers, and where they wrote their reflections, and then of course submitting it to the teachers for assessment. The teachers used to sign here and give remarks. The remarks would be in the form of grades that were used. We discussed this in the reflection session on Tuesday. So based on some literature, grading was formulated, and that those grades used to be entered by the teachers. And then pages for reflections, leaving blank pages, and then referring it back to the table of contents. So this was what was a format that was proposed way back in July 2019. That's as far as the foundation course logbook is concerned. I'll go back to the presentation. Now let's look at the format suggested for logbook of anatomy by the MUHS as early as 8th August 2019. So this is the format suggested. So this was the cover page, anatomy logbook for students. Then there was a preface page giving the background information of the logbook, how it is designed, and then of course the certificate page has satisfactorily attended or completed all assignments mentioned in this logbook. That was the key statement that was written here: date, place, and teacher in charge and HOD anatomy, the signatories here. And then general instructions as to what is expected in the anatomy logbook by the students. So what was suggested at that time was writing minimum 2 reflections on any 2 activities each of ECE, self-directed learning, and for ECE 1 reflection must on hospital and community setting. That was what was mandated here. And also EdCom module 1.1 and 1.5, because this was the division that was given by MUHS for the subject of anatomy. The 5 modules were divided amongst anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. So anatomy got 1.1 and 1.5 in the college affiliated to MUHS. And then a general instruction that logbook assessment will be based on multiple factors, because logbook carries marks. So therefore, how the assessment would be done, that was given in brief. And then there was a table of contents, which primarily was composed of the ECE, SDL, seminars, project quizzes, EdCom modules, attendance records, and records of internal assessment. So these were the things that, of course, we carry out, and then it had to be recorded in this logbook to make it a complete picture. So this was the documentation that was suggested by the MUHS at that particular point in time, where no specific guidelines were available regarding the logbook. So let's come to now the logbook design. So this was what I shared, because this was suggested before any guidelines were available. What was only available to us was the CISP document at that point in time. Even the GMER was not released at that point in time. So therefore, based on whatever data was available, the designing of the logbook was done by MUHS at that time. Then, of course, after a few months passed of training for this particular batch, in January, the erstwhile MCI published the logbook module booklet on their website, which gave us the guidelines on how to go about logbook designing, what was expected by the Medical Council of India for the institutes to do and maintain the records of the students. So let's look at that step by step. So this was called as Guidelines for Preparing Logbook for Undergraduate Medical Education Program, published dated 17 January 2020. There are a few terms that are listed in this document. Definition of the terms like competency, we are familiar with this. And what should you have or what should you have changed? That is what is the meaning of this definition of competency. Then they have defined the terms activity, remedial, and feedback, because that is what is to be done and recorded in the logbook. So activity is referring to something which is a predefined task performed by learners and that contributes to the achievement of stated objectives or competencies. So that's what is activity. Then remedial is again a planned activity which is aimed at correcting the deficits that prevent a learner from achieving an intended outcome. So remedial. And then the third term defined was feedback. It is a formal active interaction. That's the key word here, which is performed at the completion of an observed activity. And this intention of the feedback is to facilitate positive change, growth, and improvement of the learner through guided reflection of activities performed. So these are three important terms that are defined apart from the term competency in this particular booklet. Then there are a series of things that gives us guidance as to what all things we need to document in. So which competencies need to be documented? So under this head, the skill competencies that have performance, that is P level of Miller's pyramid, they automatically qualify to be in the logbook most of the time. This is the statement that is mentioned. And then selected skill competencies with SH in psychomotor and communications domain will require a logbook entry. Okay, so emphasis here is again SH, but in psychomotor and communications domain. So that is the thing that we need to emphasize here. P automatically qualifies most of the time, and SH in psychomotor and communications domain will require logbook entry, which again takes us back to the point that uh, skill competency, there is cognitive skill also. So therefore, because they are specified specifically the psychomotor and communications domain here in this. Then what else needs to be documented here? Documentation of self-directed learning. So it could be in the form of reflections, narrative, and creative writing experiences. Then participation in group activities such as seminars, symposia, etc. also constitute a part of self-directed learning. Then documentation of collected clinical or laboratory experiences and predetermined patient or community interactions such as field visits. So if you look at it, this will constitute a part of, say, early clinical exposure that we do when we take the students to hospital community settings. Then categorically, there's a statement that is mentioned, K and KH competencies are best avoided unless a clear documentation is warranted. Okay, so therefore, all the competencies which are listed in our competency document for the subject of anatomy, which fall under K and KH levels of Miller's pyramid, they should be avoided to be documented unless there is a clear documentation warranted. So then the second question that we derive answer from this particular booklet is, what are the activities that will lead to acquisition of a competency? So in other words, if we split this main question into further small questions, what should be done by the learner to achieve the competency? So that is what we need to look at and list it. Not all elements of the competency need to be addressed by a single activity. So therefore, if we look at, say, dissection as an activity or histology practical as an activity, it need not address all elements of a given competency. As we have seen, that certain competencies are large and we split them into sub-competencies and finally into smaller SLOs. So we may not be able to address all elements of that particular competency by a single activity. So we may require more than one activity for achieving a competence. Secondly, multiple sessions are required with progressive enhancement of knowledge, skills leading to acquisition of the competency, and it may happen across phases. That means not only restricted to the first year, it may go on to second year, third year, and final year also. Obviously, when we look at subject specific competencies, this may not be true. So therefore, this is one thing. If we have a common logbook of all phases, then we may need to utilize this particular point. Otherwise, the third point which is mentioned in this slide may not be applicable to logbook of anatomy per se. Then, what is the level of achievement that determines successful completion of activity? This is the third question. What determines successful completion of activity? When do we say that a candidate has successfully completed the activity? What is the expectation from the candidate, and what is the criteria for meets expectation? That means meets the expectation uh, of competency being achieved. So this is what we need to answer. Then, is scoring required for the activity? Do we need to mark it? Should it contribute to internal assessment score? That's another question that we need to answer. It is suggested that entries of logbook can carry up to 20% weightage, okay, in the internal assessment score. So this is the meaning of this statement, that if internal assessment calculation is done, then up to 20% can come from logbook, or weightage can be given to logbook. And I have seen a raised hand here somewhere. Doctor, I saw a raised hand and then it has disappeared again. Somebody raised hand. Okay, I think they have lowered the hand also. So let's move further. So as I said, up to 20% weightage of logbook can come and reach the internal assessment. Then, what needs to be done if level is not achieved? What needs to be done? So whether the activity needs to be repeated by the candidate without any remedial, then providing a remedial measure to the candidate and then repeating the activity, or simply giving feedback to the candidate so that the next time repetition is done, it can be done and the competency can be achieved. So these are the three things that can be done if a learner does not meet the expectations. Repeat the activity as it is without any intervention. Provide remedial measures, that means maybe practice, maybe something else, maybe further learning, and then allow the learner to do the activity, or just offer feedback of what went well and what could have been done better and ask the candidate to repeat. So this is what can be done if a learner does not meet expectations. Then how do we document the acquisition is the next question that we need. So far we have seen what all things need to be documented, and then uh, what needs to be done to see whether it is achieved, and what needs to be done if the level is not achieved. These are the three things that we have seen. Now we are going to see how do we document this acquisition of activities or acquisition of competencies. So we can document it either in a physical format or electronic format. And submission of the logbook is a prerequisite for taking final exams, and portfolio or an annexure to the logbook can be used to support entries into the logbook. So these are three things which are there. Documentation can be physical or electronic. Submission of logbook is mandatory for taking the final exam, and portfolio or some annexure to the logbook can be used to support entries. So we look at the table first, how we have to document as given by the erstwhile MCI, and then of course we'll be elaborating on the remaining things also. So let's look at this sample table. How do we document acquisition of competencies? So there are 8 heads or 8 columns in this table. Firstly, the competency number that is to be addressed. What is the name of the activity that is provided to the learner to achieve those competencies? Then date on which the activity is done. How many attempts the learner has taken, whether it is a first attempt, a repeat attempt, or it is following the remedial measures. Is a numerical score given to this particular activity if it is contributing to internal assessment, or just a rating which is meeting expectation, exceeding expectation, or below expectation? What is the decision of the teacher in charge or the preceptor, whether the activity is complete, whether the candidate requires a repeat, or whether the candidate requires a remedial measure? And then initial and date, followed by feedback given to the learner, and learner says that feedback is received and signs it. So these are the 8 columns that are listed. So we'll go one by one. We have already discussed it, but just for the sake of it, we'll again repeat and revise. So first column is It is the number of competency addressed, which is including the subject initial and the number of competency, number from the competency booklet. For example, AN 2.1, which is subject anatomy and competency 2.1. Then second is name of the activity. So what was the activity which was given for achieving that competency? For example, a seminar or a group discussion or sessions on, say, a particular psychomotor skill. And if suppose for a particular psychomotor skill, there are multiple sub-activities or sub-sessions, then if an institution has planned or numbered those sub-sessions, then the sub-session number can be entered in this particular form. Then, of course, the date on which the activity was completed. Then attempt by the learner. F is first attempt, R is repeat, and RE is remedial activity. This is to be done by the preceptor. So it is to be determined by the preceptor. The numerical score is out of Y, how many marks are to be awarded to the learner. Then decision of the teacher, whether the activity is completed satisfactorily, the candidate requires repeat or remedial measures. And after remedial, then there is a repeat that is done by the candidate, and then satisfactory completion is done. And then sign and date of the preceptor followed by the learner also. So this is how we document the competencies. Now we come back to our main agenda here in anatomy. Now if you look at our competency which are listed out of the 409 competencies, competency numbers 25.1 and 65.1. These are the ones which, according to the guidelines that are just listed in this module, definitely fall into the category of getting documented, because they are mentioned as level P of Miller's pyramid and SH of Miller's pyramid. And in the competency document, it is given that the number of times required for it to be certified. So these are certifiable competencies. So therefore, automatically they will feature in the logbook. And we have to do it once. That is what is given. Number is given as 1. So now, if you want to translate this and put it into that table, how do we go about doing it? So can we discuss that out? If anyone wants to just think about it, I'll go back to the table slide here. Can you try and put this in the table? Anyone can think of it. You can raise your hand and then talk if required. Either of those two competencies, which are certifiable competencies.
Please show the competencies again.
Just a minute. Yes. So let's take this 25.1. Identify, draw, and label. How do we put it into this table? So obviously, competency number is 25.1, and we'll write the competency statement also there. So what is the activity we would like to do to achieve this competency? Identify, draw, and label the slide of trachea and lung.
Sir, do we have to split them into objectives? Each objective should be achieved. Should it be that way, sir?
I think we can go ahead and do that also, because as it was said, we may not, it may not be possible to achieve that competency with a single activity. So we may have multiple activities. So for having multiple activities, we can split them into objectives.
So name of the activity, one could be identify the slide under microscope. Second objective would be draw and label the diagram. So these two objectives for that trachea, sir. Then the date it was done. Then the attempt, of course. So for identifying, that would be separately, and for drawing. Till they achieve both the objectives, they have to repeat or remedial measures might be given. That's what I feel, sir. If at first attempt they are able to do both, it could be exceeds expectation.
Yes.
If they are just about to identify and draw a TikTok diagram sort of meets expectation, and if one of the objectives is not achieved, then below expectation. And probably after remedial measures and complete decision of preceptor, it could be completed. If they in that session, if they are not able to, then it could be repeat can be given, and then once they complete, completed can be.
Okay. Thank
That's it.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Dipti, for sharing. Any other thoughts? I'm seeing some people writing on the chat also. Competency dividing into objectives, Dr. Jaiprakash says that is what Dr. Dipti also said. Then Dr. Bhavna says slide discussion exam. Dr. Mamta says slide discussion session in histology exam. It requires drawing as well. So it takes care of identification as well as draw and label the diagram, and then assessment by the teacher. Is time duration need to be included to assess the activity? Yeah, that's a question Dr. Shanti has raised, whether time duration is required to be included in assessment. So it will depend on the activity only. So therefore, when we are framing or when we are designing a logbook and listing the activities, obviously we also have to keep in picture the time that is required for that particular assessment to be done. So naturally, we will have to mention the time duration for every activity that is listed. And then I am also seeing one more question on the chat. How many times it needs to be repeated in case the performance is not up to the mark, any cutoff? So there is no cutoff that is mentioned. It will all depend on our own subjects. So uh, if the competency is a core competency which we are listing it out, it has to be achieved some from the must know area. So naturally we have to make sure that the candidate reaches up to the mark. There is no cutoff obviously, but there will be a time limit that is available to us. Maybe it can we can come back to that particular activity towards the end of the curriculum also, when there is a time period for maybe giving remedials and going ahead. Obviously, that will defy the principle of feedback, because feedback has to be immediate and remedial also has to be accordingly done. But then, to have the feasibility of things to happen, maybe we can come back towards the end of the curriculum and look at the things that have not been achieved and give the learners another chance or another set of chances for the competencies to be achieved. But your question is very valid. Any cutoff is there. There is no cutoff that is suggested. It is only the feasibility based on which we have to decide how many times we can offer the remedies. In a in a purely competency based curriculum, we need to give as many attempts to the learner, so because it is time free. The actual competency based education principle is that it is not time bound, but obviously this will not hold true in a system like ours, and we are not following the complete competency based curriculum. That's why the term that is used for us is it's a competency driven curriculum, not a purely competency based curriculum. We have a hybrid sort of curriculum. So therefore we have to fit into the time frame that is available to us, and within the time frame we have to decide how many times we can offer repeat chances to the candidate or give remedials to the candidate. So we will have to decide based on the time available to us. Yeah, how many times remedial measures allowed, sir? So there is no mandate that is given. So we will have to decide on our own whatever is possible. Okay, so if you look at it, there are different ways of putting this. So these are the two mandatory or the certifiable skills that we are looking at. There are other skills that also can be documented, which is open. It's a, what is it? You can say a Pandora's box. We have to decide which are the competencies that need to be documented and how they can be done. It's for us to decide. So let's move further. So let's look at sample logbook for professional year 1 as given in the document. It says that the first page should have the college emblem, name, address of the college, and personal details of the student, date of admission, date of beginning the phase, registration number or roll number, university ID. It all varies from college and university. This is then address, email ID, Mobile number. Okay, I'm seeing a raised hand, Dr. Ranjana Verma. Please go ahead and talk before I move further. Dr. Ranjana, you can unmute and talk.
Yes, sorry, by mistake, I raised my hand.
Fine.
Sorry.
No problem. We'll go ahead. So this is the first page of the suggested logbook. Then there is a certificate page. Now, it is interesting here. Satisfactorily completed / has not completed all assignments or requirements mentioned in the logbook for the first year. So which means that based on this, whether completed or not completed, then the next subsequent statement is there here. He or she is or is not eligible to appear for summative assessment as on the date given below. So as it is said that submission of completed logbook is mandatory for taking the final exam. So this is the place where we as teachers and assessors have to make sure that the student has completed all the requirements or assignments satisfactorily and then certify the student is eligible to appear, and countersigned by head and the dean of the college. And as you see here, it is anatomy / physiology / biochemistry foundation course / adcom, etc. That means there is a liberty that is available to us how to design our own logbook, whether it can be a common logbook or it can be separate logbooks. Then there are general instructions which are given to the students. Again, if you look at it, what the logbook contains is given here. And then logbook is a record of work done by candidate in that department and should be verified by college before submitting the application for the students for the university. So these are general instructions that are given. Now let's look at few other examples. This is courtesy our resource faculty who have been generous enough to share the logbooks of their particular college and university. So let's first look at the logbook of foundation course that was followed by Vinayaka Mission's Kripananda Variyar Medical College, Salem. I'll just show you a glimpse of that. So this is how the first page looks like of foundation course logbook of their college, the name and roll number of the student, its certificate page. Okay, then there is a place for writing attendance because as we know 75% attendance is mandatory for foundation course, and then gradation of performance in the foundation course, excellent, good, satisfactory or average. And of course there is no option of below average or poor. So we are assuming everybody has to be average, satisfactory, good and excellent, that's for sure. Then staff coordinator, HOD, anatomy, community member, all 4 concerned HODs, and then there's a dean signature here. Then there is an introduction to what foundation course is all about, what are the objectives. There are instructions on reflective writing, the name of the session, the date, time, faculty members, learning objectives, the method that was used, and then answering these 4 questions. So there are 4 questions that were asked here. What did I learn? How specifically did I learn it? Why does this learning matter, or why is it significant? And in what ways will I use this learning? So this is a simplified way of asking those 3 questions, standard questions of reflections: what happened, so what, and what next. And this is even more specific pertaining to the learning that has happened in a particular session. And then they have also given how the reflections will be assessed: 1, 2, 3, 4, and element. And they have clearly defined what is the meaning of connection to experience, accuracy, clarity, relevance, etc. So this is a very good way of telling the student that this is how it will be assessed and gradation will be done. And then there is a table of contents based on various modules: orientation, skills module, community orientation, then professional development, language, computer skills, and sports and extracurricular. 6 modules, page number, then what is the score as per the rubric that was given, and signature of the faculty in charge of that particular batch of students. And of course, this will be followed by a huge bunch of blank pages where the students will write reflections on the various activities. This is the sample of logbook of foundation course of college at Salem. Now let's go to the sample given by the MGR Medical University, and it has been called as assessment record of anatomy. And if you just look at it, it's a huge document, a very comprehensive document. And if it is implemented, it's wonderful. So this is how it looks like. It's an 82-page document. I'll just go through the table of contents just for awareness. What does it contain? It gives the university norms for the assessment, the CV of the student, then some write-up for competency-based assessment, how it is done, then total hours of coursework that are completed. Then, this is very important. If you look at points number 5 onwards, formative assessment of classroom learning, formative assessment of assignments, formative assessment of integrated sessions, ECE, SDL, ADCOM learning, and then there is a formative feedback record. So in this feedback, basically every feedback given by the teacher to the learner is documented here, and the teacher and the students sign here. And then finally certification of skills. So certifiable skills which are mentioned, they will be recorded here, and then followed by record of internal assessment tests and also record of university examinations, because this will be a comprehensive thing for the first year, and this is for the subject of anatomy here. So all the record at a glance will be available in this particular document, but it's huge and comprehensive. So if it is implemented, it will be very nicely done. Okay, so I've gone through the table of contents. Let's move further. Okay, so this is what is suggested. This slide has actually come in between. However, we'll go back to the things suggested by the MCI module. Uh, it has given us an index where it gives us foundation course, EdCom module, ECE, integration, humanities, then anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, extracurricular activity, and physical education. So the MCI document is suggesting us that there is a single document for the entire first year, and it has got all these documentation in one single log, but still it gives us the liberty to separate it off also for convenience. And this is what is a sample I said. We have discussed this in detail, but if you look at this here, why I have displayed this particular screenshot is which are the sub items that can be documented is given in this particular slide. So dissection can be documented, histology can be documented. If there are visits to the museum for achieving competencies, then museum sessions, vertical integration, early clinical exposure, seminars, self-directed learning. So all this can be documented as a part of our subject of human anatomy and can be recorded in this particular format of the table suggested. Let's look at further examples. We have seen example of the MGR University and Foundation Course Logbook of Medical College Salem. Let's look at example of Kerala University of Health Sciences, what it has prepared. I'll just show you a glimpse of that. So again, the first page is particulars of the student. Then the second page is a certificate page, and this certificate page says that has undergone 1 year training in, of course, this will be subject, and his or her performance after assessment of various competencies and other criteria is found to be satisfactory, good, excellent. Okay, so everyone has to fulfill and become satisfactory for sure, and then move ahead, good and excellent. So certificate page is this, signed by head of the department. Then academic performance, if you look at it, this is how the format is given here. Internal examination, theory, practical and formative assessment. What are the marks obtained? Feedback provided, what positive points were provided and what points could be improved. Date of the feedback, signature of student and signature of faculty. So this is what is the format given, and for n number of examinations that are there. So this is the table that is provided. And then there's a table which gives us an opportunity to write down competency number, the statement of the competency, whether it is achieved or not, yes or no, and if not achieved, then what are the remedial measures given, followed by signature of the faculty. So this is the documentation of the competencies that are recorded. So this is the format of the Kerala University of Health Sciences. In addition, number of early clinical exposure reflections that are written by students, what is the attendance, timely submission of records, what is the status, and then participation in sports, extracurricular activities at different levels is also documented here. And there is a portion where there is any other details that can be recorded. So this is Kerala University of Health Sciences. And then is MGM Medical College, Navi Mumbai. We'll look at that, what they have prepared. Again, this is the first page, students' personal details, then certificate page, satisfactorily completed or not completed, and competency achievement as documented, whether the student is eligible or not eligible for university examination. So teacher in charge and head of the department anatomy. Then there are general instructions about the logbook which are given, which are more or less similar to all the patterns that we looked at. Then there is a table of contents. So there is anatomy, there is ECE, ITCOM, SDL, and integration. These are the broad heads that are listed here. And then if you look at here, they have gone one step further. They have listed the competencies which are to be recorded, okay, to be documented. So they have picked up relevant competencies of shows how level, and they have put it up here. So this is example from upper limb, and then of course likewise they have done for all the parts of gross anatomy, and they have given a footnote how to read it. And for each competency, we will be documenting like this. So they have prepared a table like this. So this is taking into consideration the guidelines given in the document of MCI. So competency number, then what is the activity, they have nicely defined in the specimen or cadaver, then demonstrate the muscles here, and then also the knowledge component, mention their attachments and now supply. Date of completion of activity, what is the attempt, first, repeat or remedial, then below expectation, meeting expectation or exceeding expectation, and then whether it is complete, repeat or remedial is required, then faculty signature and feedback. So if you look at this particular table, they have incorporated the guidelines which are given by the Medical Council of India. So this is nicely. So this is a very good example to work on it and improve it further if required. The most impressive part here is they have clearly defined what is the activity and where is the activity, on whom the activity is going to be performed. So that is the most important thing that is there in this particular part of the competency table. Okay, so likewise they have listed for all the parts, all the competencies that they have taken into account. I'm just scrolling. Then apart from anatomy, then there is ECE completion table again. So for ECE, obviously depending on the topic of ECE chosen, they will be entering the competency number, giving it to the students and then getting it entered. And obviously activity will be whether it is hospital visit or OPD visit or paper case, that is what will be listed there. And in that, what is to be done by the students. Then EdCom module in their university, anatomy is in charge of EdCom module 1.3 and 1.5. So that's how these two competencies have come up for these two modules. And they have given the activities as per the instructions given for the particular module, and which date the activities were done, and then how the competencies were achieved by observing interactions of the students. Then cadaver as our first teacher, opening session and closing session. Then same way for SDL, we have included in SDL seminars, problem-based learning, team-based learning, then case-based learning, and group discussion. And then for the AITO topics, they have listed a table, so which can be, and there is a summary table, attendance, then faculty signature. So this is how the logbook looks like for MGM University of Health Sciences. Okay, and this we have already seen before. So this is just to show you a glimpse of the module, how it looks like. It is available even on the current NMC website. The same link, information desk for colleges, UG curriculum. If we go there, we'll get this document there. And we have looked at this. I have taken screenshots from this document only. So this is how it looks like. And this is the anatomy sample that was given. So in this document, actually, examples given are more from physiology, because physiology has psychomotor skills competencies, and it's very easy to relate. So we have to work on the competencies given in anatomy, where pure psychomotor skills are not there. We have discussed at large about psychomotor skills in anatomy, whether they exist, which are the only psychomotor skills that exist, and it's still open to discussion. So we really can't do much more about that. But this document is a good document to go about, which gives us good idea of how to design our logbook. So now we come to portfolio. So any questions or further discussions on logbook are required. Maybe 5 minutes we can do that and then move to portfolio. It's a very short section on portfolio. Yeah. Any questions, any clarifications at this stage?
Good evening, sir. This is Dr. Shanti.
Yes.
Sir, sorry if I am repeating the question because I missed in between few parts of the session because of net connectivity.
Okay.
Regarding ATCOM module, that logbook, sir,
Yes.
just what I feel, since it is a longitudinal thing from first year till their final year, they are having that ATCOM modules. Can it be separate logbook for ATCOM alone, sir? Is it advisable to have it like that?
Yeah, it can be done. It is all depending on the feasibility at the institutional level and the affiliated university. Because if you look at, we discussed even the assessment section, MCI has not suggested that there has to be summative assessment for the EdCom module. However, for example, in our affiliated university of Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, in summative assessment also, short answer questions are asked on the EdCom modules, and they have been divided in the subjects of anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry for pure convenience and nothing else. So, if that is going to be the case in universities, then probably the division within the subject will be more facilitatory. And but if it is not there in a particular university, then probably because, as you said rightly, it's a longitudinal thing that is going to happen in EdCom, and also the competencies that are there, the same competencies are there for modules in second year, third year, and final year also. So therefore, it really definitely makes sense to have an EdCom logbook which is longitudinal. So it really makes sense. So it all depends on how assessment is carried out in a summative manner with respect to EdCom module of that particular affiliated university. That will drive how you will frame the logbook for EdCom.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments so far?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, one thing I think in continuation of that question regarding the cutoff,
Yeah.
is it that when we are giving some 10, supposingly we are giving them slides to identify, they have to be on 10 on 10? Supposingly we are giving 10 epithelium slides to be identified,
Yes.
the score has to come 10 to upon 10.
See, this is formative assessment. So therefore, if there is something wrong that has happened, we will have to offer feedback. What is wrong and why they did not identify a particular slide correctly. So naturally, after having given the feedback, again, if we reshuffle the slides and give it to them, they should be in a position to identify. And competency is an all or none phenomenon. It is not actually graded, no. So whether competency is achieved or not achieved, we have to look at that way. Although, what is it? There are levels at which if you look at the Dreyfus model, there are levels, of course, because a novice, an advanced beginner, then a competent person, proficient, expert. That is there for sure. But then at this point in time, if you use this principle of documenting, then we may need to make sure that by offering feedback for that particular competency, we should make sure that the score comes to 10 on 10 after feedback. And then, of course, summative assessment is a different story altogether.
And so still,
So can I have a word, sir?
the maximum score reaches till 8.
Ah.
Let us say even after 2 or more feedbacks.
Hmm.
What is the solution out there?
Okay, what is the solution out there? So we will have to take a call at our level, at our college level, and decide that yeah, 8 is good enough. That is the level that we expect the student to be. So then, if our department will feel that that is okay, I think we should go ahead with that.
So that's allowed.
Yeah, because this is formative assessment. Yeah, Dr. Prerna has raised the hand. Dr. Prerna, you want to say something?
Sir, just out of the context, is the table for this
Dr. Prerna, you're not audible clearly. Can you come close to the mic and speak?
No. Sir, am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sir. In the table of foundation course, there was one topic humanities.
Yes,
So humanities is something different than 8Com module.
it is different. If you look at this no early clinical exposure uh, module, it is in that which is written. There is no separate time for humanities. That is there. It has to be covered as a part of the early clinical exposure itself. That is what is given. And humanities is different from EdCom. It's a separate thing.
So it's about compassion and empathy and all. Like
Yes,
how?
yeah,
Okay, so it's the basic thing. Okay,
yes.
thank you, sir.
Yeah, I am reading a few things written on the chat. Dr. Anjali is saying how many competencies should be included. Are there any guidelines? There are no guidelines that are available. Uh, Only guidelines that I listed in the slides was that the competencies which belong to a P level and shows are automatically qualified to be listed. So for us, we have to look at which are the shows how competence levels of competencies and pick up from those levels, especially those which are definitely core competencies. And Dr. Bhavana writes that we have separated EdCom logbook. In this, students write reflections, some assessment were relevant, did it for the first batch. Now, with concept of portfolio logbook, have just index of EdCom while detailed record, which we used last year, will be used as the next year. Is this okay? We are doing the same thing for ECE. Yeah, so we will discuss portfolio in the last, I mean, in the next section, and then maybe things will become clearer or maybe even duller. We will see how the discussion goes about. But conceptually, yes, what you have written looks absolutely fine because portfolio gives us all the evidences of the activities documented in the logbook. Yeah. Any other comments or things? So shall we move ahead? So let's move to portfolio.
Yes.
We come back to the definition that is given in the document. It's a collection of learners' progression in tasks and competencies. It is the evidence of events documented in the logbook, and it includes a whole array of things. So we have to choose what will fit into a portfolio. So if you look at this particular busy slide, this just gives us a concept of portfolio. Basically, portfolio has got two purposes. One is to document learning, and second is to document achievement. So there has to be a balance of the two phases of portfolios. So the comparison is given here very nicely. What is the primary purpose of a documentation of learning is learning or reflection. What is the primary purpose of documentation of achievement is showcase or accountability. Then if we look at when it is done, for learning it is done immediately. It could be in the form of maybe writing reflections. It's given as ease, therefore example is blog entries. Then of course feedback is very essential because that is going to form an essential thing for learning. That is where the role of teachers and peers comes into place when we look at documentation of learning. But when we look at documentation of achievement, it's summative, and there is role of teacher and it is self-assessment that is there, and reflection is retrospective that is happening. And audience here, when we look at achievement, is external audience, whereas audience here is primarily internal. So this is the general scheme of things as far as two sections of portfolio are concerned: portfolio of learning and portfolio of achievement. So uses of portfolio, of course, learning, formative assessment, summative assessment, continuous medical education, licensing, examination, and promotion. Now, when we look at portfolio, portfolio as a concept in the Western world is completely different, and we are just having some glimpses now of the portfolio coming into our world. Okay. At this point in time, I would like to throw it open to the house. Anybody has had any hands-on experience of using portfolio, the concept of portfolio? If anybody has any hands-on experience of using this concept of portfolio, you can take your chance and talk about it. in any frame of reference, not in terms of only undergraduate education. In any frame of reference, if you have had the opportunity of preparing your portfolio or having come across portfolio, you can just share your experience, narrate your experience.
So I would like to share
Yes, madam.
the experience of one of our faculty members, Dr. B. Sandil Kumar. He is actually in CBME Anatomy. If he's there, he can raise his hand and speak about it. But I feel he has a very good portfolio, including e-portfolio. He
Okay.
saves all his documents, certification, all the conferences he attends, papers he presents, everything in one place, maybe a Google Drive.
Okay.
These days, he has folders there where he saves. And also, earlier, when the use of computers was not that much, he used to have very nice files where he had everything that he has ever done academically. And co-curricular, extracurricular activities, all certificates used to be together. I
Okay.
feel that's the best one I've seen so far. I
Okay.
guess he's not there today to share his experience.
He is there, but I don't know because I have just looked at the participants and I searched for Sendil Kumar and he's there.
Dr. Sendil, you can share what you do. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. But this is a nice way. Everyone has got an idea, especially if you want to, if you are using the principle that portfolio is the evidence of things that are documented in a logbook. And what better than use of electronic means to gather those evidences and store those evidences so that it can be retrieved very easily as and when required. So this experience of storing everything on a Google Drive in a particular orderly manner so that it can be retrieved and linked to the documentation that we are doing of every activity that we are doing is a very nice concept. Use of Google Drive for uh, storing the evidences for portfolio. So there are advantages and disadvantages of portfolio. What are those? As mentioned in literature, portfolio helps in enhancing self-learning. It improves tutor awareness of the students' need and support required for students. It helps in preparation for advanced training. It improves clinical learning, improves IT and organizational skills because portfolio, obviously, nowadays we will not go in for a paper-based portfolio. It will be e-portfolio. So therefore, by learning to organize things, there will be improvement in IT and organization skills, and it will develop collaborative learning, and it also will have an impact on the assessment system. But there are disadvantages as well. It will be time consuming. There may be false or incomplete information. There may be concerns over originality, concerns over the structure, and that they will not be uniform. Uh, I think there are some chats which are there. In anatomy, there are 171 SH competence, where, as you said, which was mainly from psychomotor. Okay, that's pertaining to logbook. We'll come back to that. So we'll coming to the portfolio. So these are the advantages and disadvantages that are listed, but there will be many more. Probably, if we think, we can expand on this further. Types of portfolios: learning portfolio, display portfolio, and assessment portfolio. We have looked at the comparison of learning and assessment portfolio for sure. And it could be paper based or electronic. And we'll be focusing more on electronic only because that is more likely to be acceptable and doable. So looking at e-portfolios, what are the ways in which one can do or store e-portfolios? Of course, for immediate feedback, better organization, there can be easy links and hyperlinks. Images, photos, videos can be stored. Multiple devices can be used to access and retrieve the documentation, and it is very flexible. So therefore, that's an advantage of using e-portfolios. There are some apps that can be used for portfolios as suggested in literature. There is something called as Easy Portfolios. It is more an iOS based app. So those who use iPhone, iPads, they can easily use this particular application. Then there is an application called as Evernote, which also is used to store text, visuals, videos, audios, all those things. And then there is something called as VoiceThread, which is an application where it's primarily used to document blogs and You can also store audio and video files here, photographs also. So these are some apps which can be used for e-portfolios. My question to all, and it was shared already by Dr. Dipti, is Google Drive as a thing that can be used for storing e-portfolio documents. Can we use the following for maintaining e-portfolio is my question. Our own learning management system, if our institute has a learning management system, can the learning management system itself be used for maintaining e-portfolios? Then Google, our great Google, there is sites.google.com. We can build our own websites. And then, of course, there are links from Google Drive that we can share. So we can definitely maintain e-portfolios on that. And can we do in Google Classroom? Yes, we can do in Google Classroom as well. So this is what I thought of it can be done. So at this point in time, since I mentioned learning management system here, I would like to throw it open to the house. How many of how many of the participants here of this particular webinar have access to learning management system in their own colleges? Okay, I should say, does anyone have access to learning management system in their own institutes? Okay, so those who have said yes, no, I would just like those people to just respond. What learning management system, and do you think that in your learning management system can we maintain e-portfolios? A majority are saying no. Yes, majority will be no only. But those who have the learning management system, can you volunteer and just throw light? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Can we do it in Moodle? Dr. Mamta, can we do it in Moodle?
We have an LMS, but I don't know e-portfolio is being done in the our college, the LMS as such.
Okay, okay.
Moodle we have tried. We have even submitted an e-portfolio for our ACME also, Advanced Course in Medical Education.
Yes.
But that was compiled by ourselves. We didn't use any of these LMS to compile a e-portfolio.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Yes, Google Sites can be used, Dr. Mrudula is saying. Then there are issues of confidentiality. Yes, that will be there. If it's on a public site, public platform, there will be issues of confidentiality. But if it is login based, for example, if we just take an example of Google Classroom. Google Classroom is created by an admin of the college. So admin has access to the documents, all documents of that particular student, of all students who are enrolled in the particular classroom. However, one student cannot access data of another student there. So therefore, that level of confidentiality is definitely there. The admin has access to all documents, but the participants do not have access to each other's documents. So that is there. Whatever admin puts, the information is available to all participants, but what the participants put, especially in the assignment section, is not accessible. Assignment section is not accessible to all the participants of that classroom. So that is one example I can give of maintaining confidentiality of a particular individual. Google site is login based, and when we post things on Google site, we as an individual from our login, we have the liberty to provide access to a particular like for example, when we upload our videos on YouTube also, then there are options of keeping it is in draft, making it or publishing it and keeping it unlisted. So therefore, you cannot search those particular links, or making it public available to everyone. So likewise, there will be settings available in every system that we can make use of and try to set up some level of confidentiality of the document. Okay. So let's summarize. Any thoughts, any comments before we just summarize?
Can you show one portfolio, e-portfolio or portfolio how to write or example?
Okay, it is not how to write or something. It will be something like, for example, if we create a say a Google Sites link, a web page, then on the web page we need to create different sections in which particular documentation will be done. For example, if suppose if you are looking with respect to the logbook entries of the students, then logbook entries of the students, the evidence will be, say for example, uh, if we record a particular interaction of the student and the teacher with both persons consent and the administrative consent, we can just put that video as a part of the portfolio. That's an evidence of the student's performance to achieve a particular competency. That will be an example of documenting the evidence for achievement of the competency. That's a video example. Second, assignments given to the students. Okay, those assignments will be in the form of documents. People will write. So handwritten assignments also can be just clicked a photograph of, and the photos can be uploaded on a given web page in a given link. So we need to just create that heading, assignment 1 topic, and then attach this JPEG file or a PDF file in that particular link. So that becomes another example as evidence for if the student says that assignment on this done. So a teacher will be able to access this particular assignment and then grade it and give feedback to the student accordingly. So this can be done not only on Google page, but it also can be done on Google Classroom. So likewise, this could be the ways in which we can document those evidences.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other thoughts, comments? Okay, of course, portfolio is a newer concept for all of us. Unless we go into the nitty-gritties of it and do hands-on and learn it hands-on and practice it, the more we do it, we'll be learning more of it. And we obviously we will start off with simple things that are available with us and that are doable. So I took example of this Google Drive, Google Classroom, and threw it open to all whether it can be done on learning management system. So let's summarize. So what we did in the last 1.5 hours, we looked at the difference between the logbook and portfolio. We learned the principles of logbook design, and by looking at various examples and the guide that is given by the erstwhile MCI and the expert group who have prepared the module, we are definitely in a position to design a logbook. We looked at the purpose and types of portfolio, and we also just briefly described the various ways of maintaining a portfolio and discuss the possible applications that can be used for maintaining portfolios. So thank you very much for actively participating, listening patiently to this particular session, and sharing your thoughts and comments in this particular session. It's 8:25. If there are any comments, questions, clarifications, we can continue. Let us know.
So I just wanted to share about our university logbook guidelines. For internal assessment, as you mentioned, sir, 20% of internal assessment marks can be allotted for logbook. So we have actually split it for theory and practicals. Logbook for theory includes ECE and SDL, and that is for 10 marks. And the logbook for practicals is certifiable skills for 10 marks. And Dr. Bhavna had written there are 171 certifiable skills that is show how. So I did like the Navi Mumbai method where they have reduced the number of certifiable skills, and they have chosen which certifiable skills can, not certifiable, shows how level of skills. They have reduced it. I think that's a good idea. 171 is not practical. I don't think the students would do it, and the faculty would be exhausted in scoring them and all. So I think we can reduce, and we could give these 10 marks for theory and 10 marks for practicals for logbook. Of course, for practicals, we also have records for students. We have gross anatomy record and histology. So I think we need to allot marks for them as well. So we have allotted 10, and for the practical part, 30. So 30 plus 10 plus 10, it's 50 marks for practicals. And for theory, 40 marks for theory and 10 marks for logbook. So it comes to 50 for theory as well. So I just wanted to share this. Thank you, sir.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dipti, for sharing.
Sir, your presentation was very good. So many points were clarified, and e-portfolio, I think it has encouraged all of us to try e-portfolio with the students. And again, like Dr. Bhavna mentioned, we can have logbook for just maintaining the minimum score, but actually documentation in the portfolio. I think this distinction was very essential. Thank you for bringing that out, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I would also like to mention that Dr. Devavani also had shared the proposed logbook of their particular college, and it was something similar to the one that NGM Institute had prepared. So therefore, I have not duplicated it, but they have followed the similar system as per the guidelines that were given by the MCI document, and they also have listed the shows how competencies that have to be documented in the logbook. So that's for Jorhat Medical College also. Okay, so shall we close this session? Thank you very much. And we learned from each other, and thank you for the resource faculty for sharing their this thing preparation of logbook of their college and their affiliated universities. That gave us a wider perspective of how each college and each university had worked on this logbook at varied points of time, as and when they could work. We started off with the this thing module era, where MUHS just did it in a very broad way, and how systematically we could bring in those guidelines and how it could be applied to anatomy was nicely seen to the other logbooks that were shared. So thank you very much. Okay, so we can close this session. Thank you.
So
Good
can I
night.
ask a personal question?
Yeah.
Not maybe related to much. Actually, I got confused. What would be the difference between CV and a portfolio? In case
CV
we
and
are
portfolio, I have written also in the chat.
yeah, sir.
Yeah. CV, if you look at it, the word itself, curriculum vitae. So curriculum vitae means vital information is what is required. So it has to be brief. Whereas portfolio is exhaustive. Anything and everything that you do is documented and provided evidence of. So if you look at that, portfolio is much more elaborate than a CV.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so shall we close? Dr. Dipti, you can end the call.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Good night, sir.
Thank you. Good night.